My name is Gerald Vaughn, and it has been a year since my world shattered into a million irreparable pieces. To say it simply blew up wouldn't be entirely accurate. I played a pivotal role in its destruction. I orchestrated its downfall and then walked away from the wreckage, leaving behind about 60 accomplices who had shared in the deception. Among them, heartbreakingly, was my wife. There was a twisted satisfaction in watching them all go down alongside her. Before this seismic shift in my life, I was blissfully unaware, a content husband, deeply in love with my wife, cherishing our life together. Our 5-year marriage felt like a dream, a cozy home, beloved friends and neighbors, fulfilling careers, and supportive families. We were financially secure, steadily building a future together. But that future took an unexpected turn. I wish I could offer a clear explanation, a thread of logic to untangle the enigma of our relationship. But even now, the truth eludes me. Vanessa was my college sweetheart, kind, affectionate, and loyal, or so I believed. She never showed any signs of infidelity, never flirted with other men, never dressed in a way that invited attention. I never once doubted her faithfulness. I work in a research and engineering lab specializing in cutting-edge electronics for high-profile clients, including NASA and the military. We jokingly call it Geek Central. The thing about geeks is that while we thrive on complexity in our professional lives, we keep things refreshingly simple at home. What you see is what you get. We don't put on elaborate facades because, frankly, we lack the skill for deception. Some might find our demeanor a bit adolescent, and by conventional standards, they wouldn't be wrong. We love corny jokes, quote obscure movies and literature, and relish diving into intricate details. Beneath any veneer of sophistication, we don't rank highly in social finesse. But one thing we hold sacred, above all else, is honesty. For us, honesty isn't just a virtue. It's the foundation of our reputations and, by extension, our careers. Geeks don't lie. We understand that our credibility is everything, both personally and professionally. Vanessa, on the other hand, worked in high finance at Thompson & Thompson, a major player in funding large-scale construction projects across the mid-Atlantic states. Despite the firm's industry influence, I often found myself surprised by the backgrounds of many of Vanessa's colleagues. While they had a solid grasp of financial matters and some excelled at spreadsheet programming, few possessed the academic pedigree I would have expected. Conversations with them frequently left me feeling out of place, reminiscent of my high school days. One particular incident highlighted this divide. When Vanessa and I decided to name our 2 kittens Oscar and Nat, one of her coworkers suggested we should pick names of more recognizable figures. It was a small moment, but it exemplified the contrast in our perspectives. In their world, status and conformity seemed to take precedence, leaving me with a persistent sense of being an outsider. Vanessa and her colleagues were skilled at navigating the intricate world of finance, where every transaction was meticulously documented, and personal ambition often took priority over integrity. My initial discomfort around them only deepened over time, especially during events like the office Christmas party at the nearby Marriott Hotel. That night, with alcohol flowing freely and conversations blending together, it became increasingly difficult to distinguish between employees and their spouses. At one point, I overheard a woman casually refer to her work husband, a stark reminder of the professional culture Vanessa was immersed in, one where alliances were built for convenience, and loyalty often seemed fleeting. While I never held outright hostility toward her colleagues, moments like these steadily eroded any goodwill I once had. Then came the remark that truly unsettled me. My first instinct was to turn and identify the speaker, but something in me hesitated. Stop. Listen. Don't react. Blend into the background, a voice in my head cautioned. We'll all have next week off, one woman said. I suppose we'll manage without crossing the street. Another laughed. Or you could always conjure up a minor account emergency. Their laughter grew louder, but I remained frozen, trying to decipher what they meant. Crossing the street? Were they implying they'd have to come back to work during the holiday party? Or was there a hidden meaning beneath their words? A sense of unease crept over me, but I forced myself to dismiss it. I married Vanessa for a reason, I reassured myself. Whatever they're insinuating, it can't be anything serious. I pushed the nagging thoughts aside and rejoined the party. For the next 3 weeks, I barely thought about the conversation. But then, on a Friday evening, as I ascended the carpeted stairs from our basement, I heard Vanessa's voice from upstairs. All right, I'll take care of it. What's a wife for, after all? She chuckled. Wife? The way she said it struck me as odd. What's that supposed to mean? I wondered aloud, turning the corner just in time to see Vanessa hanging up the phone. What was that all about? I asked, keeping my tone neutral, free of accusation. She visibly startled at my approach. Oh, that was Martin Harris. It's work-related. I need to head into the office tomorrow, and we'll have some late nights next week, she explained quickly. There's an opportunity to assemble a funding package for a new apartment complex they're planning on J Street. The memory of that cryptic Christmas party conversation resurfaced. Sounds like a minor account emergency, I remarked. Vanessa chuckled. I wouldn't call it an emergency, but it's an opportunity we can't afford to miss. I sighed, unable to hide my disappointment. We've both been putting in long hours this year. I was hoping we could take it easy this month, spend more time together. Sweetie, please don't be upset, she reassured me. These opportunities don't come around often. You have to seize them while you can, or they slip away. I promise I'll make it up to you. Her words seemed reasonable, but something nagged at me. That wife comment, I said. I thought I was your only husband. How many do you have? I quipped, attempting to keep things lighthearted. A flicker of surprise crossed Vanessa's face, quickly masked by a smile. Just you, silly. It's something we say at the office. We joke about seeing more of our work partners than our actual partners at home. It's just office humor. Everyone says it. She laughed, but I noticed her hands trembling slightly. I'll just go in for a few hours tomorrow to kickstart things, and then we'll have the rest of the weekend together, she promised, her smile tight. The rest of Friday passed quietly, and as promised, Vanessa left for work on Saturday morning. She dressed casually, making it seem like any other workday. But our so-called weekend together didn't begin until after 7 p.m. that night. Now, don't get me wrong. I respect hard work and the importance of meeting deadlines. But what unsettled me wasn't the long hours. It was the secrecy creeping into our marriage. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Vanessa's work than she let on. As I waited for her to return that evening, a realization settled over me. While I often shared stories from my own job, quirky anecdotes, interesting projects, Vanessa rarely did the same. In fact, I couldn't recall a single instance where she had spoken in detail about her work. It hit me then. She had built an invisible wall between her professional life and our home life, a divide I had never fully recognized until now. When she finally walked through the door that night, she barely paused to greet me before heading straight for the shower. I, on the other hand, turned my attention to the steaks I had started grilling, my thoughts consumed by an unease I couldn't ignore. Despite my efforts to focus on cooking, my mind remained fixated on that unsettling wife comment. Even if it had been meant innocently, it didn't sit right with me. It lingered, gnawing at the edges of my thoughts. Two phrases from the Christmas party kept playing in my mind like a broken record: work husband and crossing the street. Were they just harmless office jokes, or did they carry a deeper, more literal meaning? Given the location of Vanessa's office, I couldn't help but consider the possibilities. Directly across the street stood two prominent buildings, a large medical practice and the Marriott Hotel. A troubling realization crept over me. Several of Vanessa's colleagues at the Christmas party had seemed unusually familiar with the layout of that hotel. My rational mind tried to dismiss it as mere coincidence, attributing their knowledge to business lunches or client accommodations. But my mood had already soured, and my imagination led me down darker paths. That week, seeking a break from the monotony of the lab, I decided to have lunch alone in my car. Coincidentally, my parking spot offered a clear view of the street separating Vanessa's office from the Marriott. What I saw left a bitter taste in my mouth. Around 11:45 a.m. on Monday, just before lunch hour, I observed several couples strolling across the street, disappearing into the Marriott. By 12:30, those same pairs, never groups, never colleagues in threes or fours, just pairs, leisurely made their way back to their respective offices. Though Vanessa wasn't among them, the sight only deepened my unease. Tuesday brought the same routine, different couples, the same suspicious behavior. I debated taking a closer look inside the hotel lobby, but the risk of being recognized, especially by Vanessa, held me back. By the afternoon, desperation pushed me to a step I never thought I'd take. I hired a private investigator. His name was Caleb Donovan. I told him everything, what I'd seen, what I feared. I handed him a photo of Vanessa, my voice tight with the weight of my suspicions. His response was as unsettling as it was pragmatic. Don't dwell on it, he advised. Resume your normal routine. If there's something to be found, it will reveal itself soon enough. I nodded, forcing myself to say the words, I hope I'm wrong. But deep down, I already knew. By Thursday morning, my worst fears had been confirmed. Seated across from me in his office, Caleb delivered the truth I had both dreaded and expected. Wednesday morning, at precisely 11:45 a.m., my wife entered the Marriott. Martin Harris's arm was draped around her waist. At the reception desk, they stopped briefly, long enough to secure a room key, before heading to the fourth floor. They didn't emerge again until 12:40. Caleb, with his knack for gathering discreet information, had a private conversation with the desk clerk, uncovering a disheartening truth. My wife and her so-called work husband were frequent guests at the hotel. The revelation came at a swift cost of $300, a mere down payment, as Caleb put it. He warned me that obtaining irrefutable proof would demand a greater price. Despite my internal turmoil and self-loathing for even entertaining such suspicions, I resolved to pursue undeniable evidence, no matter how painful the truth might be. Caleb proposed a plan. With the cooperation of the desk clerk and carefully timed room rentals, he would determine which room Vanessa and her colleague used during their next visit. He would then secure the adjacent rooms, setting up discreet video surveillance. It was an expensive endeavor, bribes included, but I was willing to pay whatever it took to uncover the truth. The past 7 days had been excruciating. I found myself distancing from Vanessa as much as possible, though she quickly noticed my erratic behavior. When she questioned me, I brushed it off with vague excuses about work, but I doubted she believed me. Even though I tried to act normal, my discomfort was obvious. When Vanessa expressed a desire for intimacy, I reluctantly obliged, convincing myself that perhaps, just perhaps, I was wrong, that I had seen ghosts where none existed. But as we made love, my heart was weighed down with anger and anguish. It felt like my marriage was dying before my eyes, yet I still lacked the undeniable proof my mind demanded. Then the call came. Caleb had secured the room for the following Wednesday morning and evening. And by Thursday, I sat in his office, clutching the evidence that would shatter my world. The gut-wrenching, 40-minute video played before me, each frame driving a dagger deeper into my chest. My wife, the woman I had built my life around, the center of my universe, was locked in an intimate embrace with Martin Harris. In moments of turmoil, a mind like mine can wander to strange places. I recalled an old joke about a husband catching his wife in bed with another man, pointing a gun at him and saying, "Don't laugh. You're next." But I wasn't laughing, and I wasn't going to lose myself in the chaos. They would face the consequences of their betrayal, and I would find the strength to walk away. Yet before confronting the situation head-on, I knew I needed space. Staying under the same roof as Vanessa felt suffocating, unbearable. I arranged to take the rest of the week off, citing a trip down to Wallops if anyone asked. Then, hastily packing a bag, I left behind a note and drove westward, putting distance between myself and the wreckage of my marriage. Thankfully, I had a childhood friend, Brandon, who lived about an hour past Baltimore. He welcomed me for the weekend, giving me the refuge I desperately needed. As I drove, my mind raced with questions about the woman I thought I knew so well. Had she become so skilled at compartmentalization that she could justify having 2 husbands, one in our home and another across the street? One thing became painfully clear. My wife had mistaken trust for naivete. I had never been naive. Deceiving a husband who had placed unwavering trust in her was hardly an achievement. But the days of blind trust were over. My marriage lay in ruins, awaiting its inevitable funeral. Childhood friends have an uncanny ability to see through facades. They know you, your past, your present, your innermost thoughts. There's no hiding from them. Within minutes of arriving at Brandon Place, he read the turmoil etched on my face. And when I shared the devastating truth, his reaction mirrored my own, seething anger. But it was his wife, Tiffany, who urged us to temper our rage and approach the situation with clarity. She didn't defend Vanessa. Instead, she implored me to consider what I truly wanted and to avoid acting on impulse. A woman's perspective, she argued, often reveals the deeper social dynamics at play. While my fury was directed solely at my wife and her so-called work husband, Tiffany saw a broader picture, one where women either wielded power over workplace affairs or silently enabled them. Men are pigs, she quipped, sharing a knowing smile with her husband. It's up to women to civilize them. Brandon, though reluctant, nodded in agreement. But I wasn't looking for wisdom. I want to bring them all down, I said, my voice cold and unwavering. I'm divorcing my wife. That deceitful, unfaithful woman. She's betrayed me, and it's clear this isn't her first time. I want Martin Harris to regret ever being born. I want every adulterer in that office to rue the day they chose to break their vows. Tiffany sighed, attempting to inject reason into my fury. Be absolutely certain you're prepared for the consequences. There might be factors at play you don't know. Maybe she'll be consumed by remorse. Never repeat her actions. You loved this woman enough to marry her. Are you truly ready to throw it all away? Her words barely registered. With a resigned sigh, I retrieved the damning evidence, and together, we watched the footage. Martin Harris, just a pencil pusher. A man whose world revolved around numbers and spreadsheets. While I pushed my body through evening runs, he indulged in extravagant dining. He was anything but formidable. For 40 agonizing minutes, we bore witness to my wife surrendering herself to him. She smiled. She laughed, and while she was enjoying in her affair, my world crumbled. As the video ended, a heavy silence filled the room. I turned to Tiffany, searching for guidance. How long should I ponder this? I asked, desperate for an answer. She simply shook her head, pulled me into a silent embrace, and then, without a word, began preparing dinner. Brandon, ever the pragmatic one, had pursued a career in law, an irony not lost on me. Yet, he remained a loyal friend, and for that, I forgave him. His wife, a high school science teacher, possessed a surprisingly analytical mind. Over the course of the weekend, we engaged in countless discussions, and with their help, I began formulating a plan. I called Caleb. I laid out my intentions. It would take time. It would take money, but it was possible. We devised a strategy to divide Vanessa's office into two groups, management and those closely affiliated with her. Roughly 10 individuals, along with their respective work spouses. My goal wasn't just to scorch them. I wanted to obliterate them. The rest of the employees would feel the ripples, but without depleting my savings. Caleb would discreetly install cameras in the offices of management and the targeted coworkers. Meanwhile, the others would be recorded entering and exiting through the lobby. When the time came to file for divorce, I would take legal action against the company, ensuring that every spouse of every adulterous employee knew the full extent of their indiscretions. That weekend, I agonized over whether I had missed the warning signs. There had to have been signs, but she never seemed cold or indifferent. She had always been supportive, listening attentively whenever I shared details about my work. Could she truly lead a double life without remorse? Was she a sociopath? Yet, I remembered her jittery reaction when I confronted her about the wife remark that fateful Friday. It suggested she did know right from wrong, or, at the very least, she was aware of the potential consequences. I struggled to comprehend how anyone could sustain such deception without cracking under the weight of their own guilt. And then, a chilling thought surfaced. By leaving town, I had unwittingly given Vanessa and her so-called work husband the perfect opportunity to use our home for their affair. A fresh wave of anger surged through me. But almost as quickly, I recognized the futility of dwelling on it. In the grand scheme of things, their actions, no matter how brazen, were irrelevant. I had already decided to divorce her, regardless of whatever new betrayals I uncovered. Resolving to claim what was rightfully mine, I steeled myself for the forthcoming deception and embarked on the drive home Sunday night. To minimize costs, we opted not to gather footage of all the work spouses in their hotel rooms more than once, except for Vanessa and Mr. Harris. Keeping the number of room rentals low and reducing the time needed for Caleb's team was a strategic decision. But when it came to my wife, I wanted proof. Undeniable, irrefutable proof. I wanted to eliminate any chance of her dismissing her actions as a one-time mistake. It took just 2 weeks to achieve our objective. 2 grueling, excruciating weeks. Some might argue that a single instance of infidelity was enough for retribution. And maybe it would have been. But my desire for revenge extended far beyond Vanessa and Mr. Harris. I wanted to expose all of them, the entire office that had enabled, covered for, or simply turned a blind eye to my wife's affair. That level of deception took time to unravel. Most work spouses had a routine, meeting at the hotel across the street once a week, some more frequently than others. While we didn't catch every instance, we caught enough to serve our purpose. Vanessa and her accomplice? Like clockwork, every Wednesday. To distance myself from the unbearable truth, I buried myself in work, pretending to stay late most nights. But being in our home, knowing what had happened there, was suffocating. I found excuses to leave. I fabricated last-minute emergencies, claiming I had to travel to Wallops on Thursdays, when in reality, I spent those nights at a hotel near my workplace. Fridays, I sought refuge at Brandon and Tiffany's. Mondays, I checked back into the hotel, unable to face the emptiness of our house. Vanessa began to complain. She felt neglected. Our relationship turned cold, the air between us thick with unspoken words. She tried to maintain a facade of normalcy, but I had already detached. Emotionally, I was gone, and it reflected in her demeanor. Seeking distance, I moved into the guest room, making sure to leave the house early every morning. Perhaps she sensed the strain in our marriage. Perhaps she bought into my flimsy excuses. Or maybe she just didn't care. Regardless, none of it stopped her from continuing her Wednesday lunches with her work husband. If anything, their lunch breaks only seemed to grow longer. It became increasingly clear that infidelity was rampant in Vanessa's workplace. A significant portion of the staff, many in senior positions, were entangled in extramarital affairs. The rot, as the saying goes, started from the top. Months later, when I reflected on the 3 videos I had watched, I realized something glaringly absent me. Not once did they mention my name. Neither of them spoke ill of me, nor did they feel the need to justify their betrayal. It was as if I didn't exist. What stung even more was seeing Vanessa wearing her wedding rings throughout those encounters, a silent testament to her complete indifference toward our marriage. I was invisible. Though there was a semblance of tenderness between the two of them, it felt hollow. Their connection lacked the depth, the authenticity of a truly committed relationship. They were more than casual partners, yet far from being true lovers. But the moment I saw my wife and her work husband saunter through the hotel lobby, his arm possessively wrapped around her waist as they headed toward their rendezvous, I knew our marriage was beyond saving. Watching them together confirmed what I had already suspected. There would be no room for explanations, no empty apologies, no worn-out cliches. My decision was final. Not only would I end our marriage, I would expose and dismantle the entire toxic culture of her workplace. I had no interest in hearing her excuses, no desire to witness her tears, and the idea that it was just sex? Utterly repulsive. 3. No. 4. Separate encounters were more than enough to destroy any illusion of her fidelity. While my lawyer meticulously drafted the divorce papers, Caleb handled the rest. At precisely 10 a.m. on Monday morning, a process server strode into the offices of Thompson & Thompson. With calculated precision, he delivered divorce papers to both Vanessa and Martin Harris at their desks. Then, with deliberate strides, he made his way to the CEO's office and served the company itself. Looking back, there's a certain irony to it all. The CEO, Daniel Mercer, was complicit in the very culture of infidelity I sought to expose. At 67, he had a trophy wife barely half his age, yet he still found solace in the arms of his 45-year-old secretary. What compelled him to seek that particular brand of comfort remains a mystery to me. At 10:20, my phone buzzed incessantly. I silenced it without a second thought. Meanwhile, 5 of Caleb's operatives fanned out across the city, delivering manila envelopes to the unsuspecting spouses of nearly every employee at the company. Some received photographs, others videos. Each package included a meticulously detailed report, evidence they could use in their own divorce proceedings. Martin Harris's wife received an especially thick envelope, filled with enough evidence to shatter any illusions she may have had about her marriage. For others, a letter sufficed, a stark wake-up call, enlightening them about the rampant infidelity at Thompson & Thompson, should they choose to confront their spouses. Each envelope bore a simple yet pointed note. In the spirit of transparency, you can thank Vanessa Vaughn for bringing this to our attention. I couldn't help but wonder how many allies my deceitful wife would have left come Tuesday morning. Thompson & Thompson's downfall was swift and absolute. Following my lawsuit against the company, a tidal wave of legal actions followed, 20 in total. Divorce filings swept through the office like a wildfire, consuming even marriages untouched by actual evidence of infidelity. The mere whisper of scandal was enough to sow doubt and destruction. Management's desperate attempts to terminate employees implicated in the affair only served to expose their own complicity. Those who were innocent fled quickly, scrambling to salvage their reputations. The media pounced on the scandal, and within 2 weeks, an expose detailing the firm's collapse went viral. The phrase "work spouses" appeared prominently in the article. I couldn't help but wonder about its origins, perhaps coined by some oblivious husband, blind to the realities of corporate culture. Business dwindled in the aftermath, and within 2 months, Thompson & Thompson shut its doors for good. The once bustling office stood eerily vacant for nearly a year before it was finally repurposed. And then, one day, I found myself sitting across from Vanessa in my lawyer's office. Tears streamed down her face as she tried, at last, to express remorse. For weeks, I had endured a barrage of messages, pleas, denials, apologies, and even desperate attempts at bribery and negotiation. But now, she was finally acknowledging her betrayal. She blamed the atmosphere of high finance for her actions. I struggled to see the connection between her infidelity and the financial sector, but to her, it seemed woven into the culture. Yet her apology was short-lived. In a baffling twist, she tried to shift the blame onto me, claiming that my failure to communicate my concerns had contributed to her cheating. Ridiculous. A spouse shouldn't need reminders to remain faithful. You shouldn't have to tell your wife that cultivating a so-called work husband is unacceptable. Even after everything, Vanessa's infidelity remained an enigma to me. She never provided a real explanation, only flimsy justifications and evasive excuses. The woman I had once loved, the bright-eyed, ambitious woman who had once seemed so honest, was gone. In her place was someone I barely recognized. A woman who had embraced deceit with the mantra, "What he doesn't know won't hurt me." According to Caleb, their lunch breaks were the extent of their affair. Wednesdays only. No secret rendezvous during my weekend away. As if, in her twisted logic, she was adhering to some distorted version of ethical cheating, keeping it contained, but never stopping. Caleb even attempted to rationalize it, suggesting that, for her, this might have been some perverse form of bonding ritual. Thompson & Thompson fostered a toxic corporate culture where team building was little more than a euphemism for workplace affairs. A twisted sense of loyalty seemed to govern the office. Employees confined their extramarital activities to a single partner, often their closest colleague. Caleb speculated that they viewed themselves as intellectually superior, bound by a clandestine knowledge or some unspoken social contract of shared risk-taking. Whether it was a mutual secret or a warped form of camaraderie, I struggled to make sense of it. No matter how much I tried to rationalize their behavior, I couldn't shake my emotional attachment to both my marriage and the circumstances of my divorce. In the end, I had a choice: spend a lifetime untangling the complexities of these people or simply walk away. I chose the latter, but my quest for revenge didn't unfold the way I had envisioned. While I emerged victorious in my legal battles, Thompson & Thompson's coffers were empty. And Martin Harris? He was financially obliterated in his divorce proceedings. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had personally orchestrated the destruction of both the company and Harris, rendering them incapable of paying the very settlements I had fought for. My wife, now jobless, sought alimony in the divorce. But my lawyer successfully argued that her unemployment was a direct result of her own infidelity. Her request was denied. Even the betrayed spouses, despite their partner's betrayals, resented me for exposing the truth. Rather than directing their anger where it belonged, they saw me as the instigator, the one who forced them to confront an ugly reality. It was an unforeseen consequence, though one I could live with. In a city this vast, I didn't need their forgiveness. One reaction, however, caught me completely off guard. Emma Harris. She approached me one evening at a bar, her presence commanding attention. There was an undeniable allure about her. Something in the way she carried herself, in the deliberate way she took a seat beside me. "I'm divorcing my husband," she declared, "but I want more than just revenge. I want him to know. I want to confess that I slept with his mistress's husband. Will you help me, Mr. Vaughn?" She let the question linger before delivering the final blow. "Will you defile me and aid in humiliating the man who betrayed your wife?" I took a moment to consider, then agreed. It was a decision I never regretted. Vanessa's family, initially furious with me, confronted me about the divorce. But I chose to meet the situation head-on. I showed them the video. As they watched, their anger dissolved into shock, grief, and shame. Tears fell. Apologies followed. They no longer blamed me, though they did try, in vain, to convince me to give Vanessa a second chance. Forgiveness, however, eluded me. I couldn't recall Vanessa ever asking for it, and my heart remained hardened. For over a year after the divorce, I reflected on everything that had happened, the irony of it all. Despite my expertise in high-tech electronics, it wasn't advanced technology that exposed Vanessa's infidelity. It was basic methods. A parked car, a well-placed bribe to a desk clerk, a cheap, off-the-shelf miniature camera. A brutal reminder that even the most sophisticated technology is powerless against human betrayal. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how easily they could have concealed their affair. If I hadn't overheard a stray conversation, would I have ever known? From that moment on, the signs were glaringly obvious. Their careless glances, the way their paths would accidentally cross outside of work, the brazen indifference of couples casually walking the streets together, oblivious, or simply indifferent, to appearances. How had they gone undetected for so long? Did no one care? It made me question the world I lived in. Were all workplaces like this? Was infidelity more common than I had ever realized? In my own professional circles, those who bragged about their romantic conquests were often lonely men, their only true companionship found in their own hands. Once again, I found myself an outsider, watching from the sidelines, an unwilling spectator to the reckless indulgences of the cool kids. Occasionally, I see Vanessa, in passing, on the street, in a store. We never speak, but when our eyes meet, there's something there, a flicker of sorrow. And yet, I can't bear to hold her gaze for long. Her presence is a painful reminder of the life I once had. A life now in ruins. But I've turned a corner, starting anew. Like a detonator setting off an explosion, I ignited a chain reaction that didn't just destroy my marriage. It shattered everything, including my own sense of self. And now, I'm left picking up the pieces. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.